The night sky over Prague was cold and quiet. A single black car stopped near an abandoned theater. From its window, Keanu Reeves stepped out, his face calm yet tired. He had come not as John Wick, but as himself, a man searching for something deeper than fame. Inside the theater, the lights were dim, dust floating like slow snow. Ana de Armas waited near the old piano, her hands trembling slightly. This was not just another rehearsal, it was her first step into a world of discipline and danger. She turned as Keanu entered, her eyes unsure but hopeful. He smiled gently, saying nothing at first, only nodding. The director, Angelica Huston, watched them from the shadows. She knew both of them carried pain. Keanu carried loss, Ana carried fear, and she would turn both into strength. The rehearsal began. Keanu moved with precision, every gesture sharp yet graceful. Ana followed, her rhythm uncertain but honest. Minutes passed, then hours. Their eyes met between movements, a silent trust forming. Outside, a storm started. Thunder echoed through the walls as if testing their resolve. Ana fell once, her ankle twisting, but she stood again without a word. Keanu noticed the pain but said softly, "You can stop if you need to." She shook her head, whispering, "Not when you're still standing." That one sentence changed something in him. It reminded him of the promise he once made to his late friend, that he would keep inspiring others through pain, not despite it. For the first time in months, he felt alive again. By midnight, they finished the final sequence. The director clapped slowly, her voice deep and calm. "The world will not see what you did here tonight," she said, "but it will feel it." Keanu looked at Ana. Her eyes glistened with tears, not from pain, but gratitude. In that moment, he knew she was ready for something bigger. He also knew something else, someone was watching them. A faint silhouette stood near the balcony, motionless. Keanu turned toward it, but the figure disappeared into the shadows. He thought it might be a fan or a crew member, but his instincts whispered otherwise. Something about that silence felt wrong. The next morning, the theater gate was found unlocked, though no one had left it open. Ana arrived early and found a single white envelope near the piano. It had no name, only a black wax seal in the shape of a coin. She looked around, confused, and called Keanu immediately. He arrived within minutes, his expression darkening as he saw the seal. "This isn't part of the movie," he said quietly. Ana frowned. "Then what is it?" He took a breath before answering. "It's a message from the real John Wick world." The envelope contained one line, handwritten in red ink. It said, "Your story has already begun." Both stood frozen, realizing this was no movie anymore. Somewhere, someone was pulling the strings. The morning light touched the theater windows, soft and golden, but their hearts were heavy. Ana sat near the piano, staring at the envelope again. The red ink had begun to fade, but the fear inside her had not. Keanu walked in quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside her and said gently, "You slept here, didn't you?" She nodded, eyes still on the wax seal. "I couldn't go home, something feels wrong," she whispered. He sat beside her, his voice calm, almost fatherly. "Fear is natural, Ana, but it cannot control you." She smiled faintly, trying to believe him. The director entered, her long coat sweeping across the floor. "So you both received it," she said in a low tone. Ana looked up. "You mean someone else got the same thing?" The director nodded slowly. "3 of us, the message is identical." Keanu frowned. "Is it a marketing stunt?" She shook her head. "No studio would risk this much secrecy. Whoever sent this knows too much." She placed another envelope on the piano, this one slightly burned on the edges. Inside it was a small silver key. Ana stared at it. "What does it open?" The director's eyes softened. "Something that was never meant to be reopened." Keanu stood, tension clear in his shoulders. "Then we need to find out who's behind this." The director whispered, "You're already part of it, Keanu. You just don't remember." His face turned pale. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, sadness flickering in her eyes. "Before John Wick, before all this fame, there was a real mission. And it started with a man who looked exactly like you." The silence that followed felt endless. Ana looked between them, confused and shaken. "Are you saying the story was real?" she asked. The director simply said, "Some stories begin as truth and end as fiction. Others never end at all." That night, they decided to trace the origin of the seal. Ana searched old prop records. Keanu made calls to his former stunt coordinators. Every person they contacted either refused to talk or hung up the moment he mentioned the wax coin. Finally, one message came through. A single text appeared on Keanu's phone. It read, "Meet at the old church near Charles Bridge at midnight. Come alone." Ana tried to stop him, but he refused. "Whoever sent this knows something about me. I have to go," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the storm. As the clock neared midnight, the rain began. Keanu reached the church, its door half open, candles flickering inside. He stepped carefully, every sound echoing in the vast hall. Then a voice called from the shadows, calm but sharp. "You should not have come alone, Mr. Reeves." A man stepped forward, wearing a dark coat, his face hidden by the hood. He threw a coin that landed perfectly at Keanu's feet. The same wax seal, but in metal. Keanu picked it up, his hand shaking slightly. "Who are you?" he asked. The stranger smiled faintly. "Someone who remembers what you were before you became John Wick." Keanu's pulse quickened. "I was an actor, nothing more." The man shook his head. "You were trained long before Hollywood found you. You walked away once, but your story didn't end. It paused." The rain outside grew louder, thunder rolling like an ancient drum. Keanu stared at him, voice trembling between disbelief and anger. "Prove it." The stranger stepped closer, his hand revealing a small photograph. In it, Keanu stood in front of a burning building, dressed exactly as John Wick, years before the first film was ever shot. Keanu froze. His hands trembled as he held the photo closer, his mind racing through every memory. It felt real, too real. He looked up, but the stranger was gone. Only the coin remained, glowing faintly in the candlelight. When Keanu returned to the theater at dawn, Anna was waiting at the gate. She saw his face and knew something had changed forever. "What happened?" she asked softly. He handed her the photo and whispered, "I think John Wick was never just a movie." Anna's lips parted in shock, her breath unsteady. Behind them, a distant bell rang across the empty streets. The same red ink message flashed again on the envelope lying nearby, as if freshly written. "Your story has already begun." The morning air over Prague felt colder than usual. Clouds hid the sun, and the city carried an unspoken tension. Anna and Keanu sat in silence inside the empty theater, the photograph lying between them on the dusty piano. Anna's hands trembled as she traced the edges of the picture. "This can't be real," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Keanu stared ahead, lost in thought, his eyes distant as if searching for memories buried under time. "Whoever that man was," she said quietly, "he looks exactly like you." Keanu nodded slowly. "And that's what scares me." The director, Angelica Huston, entered from the shadows. Her calm steps echoed softly like a warning carried by the floorboards. "You met him, didn't you?" she asked in a low tone. Keanu turned to her. "You knew about this, didn't you?" The director sighed, sitting down on the front row seat. "I tried to keep you both safe, but it seems the past has found its way back." Anna frowned. "Safe from what?" The director hesitated, then spoke. "Years ago, before the first John Wick movie, there was a real organization. They trained men and women in silence, discipline, and honor. They were called the Pact." Anna exchanged a confused glance with Keanu. "Like assassins?" she asked softly. The director shook her head. "Not assassins, protectors. They guarded something powerful, something that could rewrite fate itself." Keanu's jaw tightened. "And you think I was part of them?" The director looked at him sadly. "I don't think, Keanu." "I know." The theater lights flickered suddenly, followed by a faint buzzing sound. Anna jumped from her seat, looking around. A small black drone hovered near the balcony, its red light blinking. Keanu grabbed a wooden pole and smashed it down before it escaped. It crashed to the floor, releasing sparks. Inside the remains, they found a single chip and a folded note. Anna unfolded it slowly. On it was written, "Stop searching or the next act ends in fire." The director looked shaken for the first time. "They know we're here," she whispered. Keanu's voice was calm but firm. "Then we find them before they find us." They packed their things quickly and drove out of the city. The road curved through misty forests and old villages. Anna stared out the window, her reflection pale against the glass. "Keanu," she said softly, "why do you think they're doing this?" He replied without looking at her. "Maybe someone wants the world to forget what really happened." She turned toward him. "Or maybe someone wants you to remember." As dusk fell, they reached an old monastery on the edge of a mountain. The director explained it had once been a safe house for the Pact. Ancient symbols were carved into the stone walls, and a faded mural showed figures holding coins, keys, and books of light. Inside, the air smelled of dust and incense. A single candle burned near a statue, its flame steady. Anna whispered, "This place feels alive." The director nodded. "It remembers everything." They followed a narrow corridor that led to an underground vault. Keanu pushed open the iron door, and a rush of cold air met them. In the center stood a large chest, sealed with a silver lock. He pulled the silver key from his pocket, the same one found in the envelope. Anna's breath caught as he turned it slowly. The lock clicked, the sound echoing like thunder in the silent room. Inside the chest were old documents, photographs, and a small glass cube glowing faintly. The light shifted as if reacting to Keanu's presence. Anna reached toward it, but the director stopped her. "Don't touch it, it's alive." Keanu looked closer and saw reflections forming inside the cube, scenes of battles, faces, cities, and something terrifyingly familiar. His own face appeared inside it, bloodied and weary, fighting in a war he had never lived, standing in the same theater years before Anna was even born. He stumbled back, breath unsteady. Anna caught his arm. "What did you see?" he whispered. "Me, but not this me." The director's eyes widened. "Then it's true." Anna turned to her. "What's true?" The director's voice shook for the first time. "John Wick was never a role. It was a memory." Keanu felt his chest tighten, the air thick with disbelief. The cube's glow dimmed as if satisfied. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed above them, slow, deliberate, approaching closer. Anna grabbed Keanu's hand, whispering, "Someone's here." They ran toward the staircase, the director following behind. As they reached the main hall, the old wooden doors burst open. A group of masked figures entered, their movements precise and silent. The leader stepped forward, holding a gun marked with the same coin symbol. His voice was calm and cold. "Welcome back, John." Keanu froze, every instinct screaming danger. The air turned heavy, the candles flickering wildly. Anna's hand tightened around his arm. The leader removed his mask. It was the same man Keanu met at the church. And he was smiling. "The past doesn't die," he said. "It just waits for you to remember." Keanu took a step forward, eyes locked on the man. His voice was steady now. "Then let's finish what we started." The man smiled wider. "You already did." A gunshot echoed through the hall and everything went dark. The sound of the gunshot still echoed in Keanu's ears when he opened his eyes. He was lying on the cold marble floor of the monastery, light flickering above him. The world around him felt hazy, the air heavy with smoke and dust. Anna's voice broke through the silence, trembling and desperate. "Keanu, can you hear me?" He groaned softly and tried to move. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but the bullet hadn't hit him. One of the masked men lay unconscious beside him, the weapon still clutched in his hand. Anna's hands were shaking as she pressed against his shoulder. "You almost died," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. Keanu pushed himself up slowly, looking around. The director was gone. Only her scarf remained, half-burned, lying near the shattered cube. He stared at it for a long moment, dread crawling through his chest. "They took her," he said quietly. Anna nodded, her voice breaking. "Why her?" Keanu looked toward the broken cube, its glow now gone, leaving behind a hollow reflection of himself. "Because she knows the truth," he said, "and they don't want me to hear it." They searched the monastery and found marks of a struggle, footprints leading toward the forest road outside. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled of smoke and metal. Keanu picked up the silver coin dropped by one of the men and clenched it tightly. "These people aren't here for a game," he said softly. "They're protecting a story the world was never meant to know." As they drove through the forest roads, Anna kept glancing at him. "You said before that John Wick was a memory," she said. Keanu nodded, his eyes fixed on the road. "The more I think about it, the more it feels true. Every move I make, every reaction, it feels rehearsed, not learned. Like I've done this before in another life." Anna's voice was quiet but filled with fear. "What if you were made to forget?" Keanu turned to her, the thought cutting deep. "Then someone decided who I was allowed to be." They reached an old gas station by dawn, a small place surrounded by fog and silence. The old man inside recognized Keanu instantly, but his reaction wasn't excitement, it was caution. He handed Keanu a folded map and whispered, "They told me you'd come. The director left this." Keanu unfolded the map and saw a red circle marked near Vienna. Beside it, a single line written in her handwriting read, "Follow the trail of the fallen coin." They drove nonstop toward Vienna, passing through empty highways and quiet towns. The deeper they went, the more flashes hit Keanu's mind, gunfire, screams, a burning cathedral, and a woman's voice calling his name from the smoke. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. Anna looked at him nervously. "What did you see?" he whispered. "Someone I lost long before I became an actor." When they reached Vienna, the air felt different, colder, heavier, as if the city itself was watching. The red circle led them to an underground club hidden beneath an opera house. Inside, the crowd danced under crimson lights, but every face seemed too calm, too aware. Keanu walked to the bar and placed the coin on the counter. The bartender froze, then nodded silently. He led them to a door behind the stage, a long corridor lit by blue lights and lined with old photographs. At the end of the hall, a single woman waited, elegant, poised, wearing a long black dress. Her voice was smooth as glass. "Welcome home, John." Anna stepped forward. "His name is Keanu." The woman smiled faintly. "Names are only masks. He wore yours long enough." She motioned for them to sit. "The director told me you would come. She wanted me to finish what she started." Keanu's tone was sharp but controlled. "Where is she?" The woman looked down, sadness crossing her face. "She's alive, but they have her. She traded her freedom for your memory." Anna frowned. "What does that mean?" The woman leaned closer. "The John Wick films weren't fiction. They were containment. Memories turned into cinema, pain turned into art. It was the only way to hide what he really was." Keanu felt his breath shorten. "And what was I?" The woman whispered. "The last keeper of the pact. You guarded the relic there, searching for the cube of remembrance." Anna looked shocked. "But it broke." The woman nodded. "Because you touched it. It responds to the soul that once protected it, and now they need your blood to awaken it again." Keanu stood, disbelief turning into resolve. "They won't get it." The woman looked at him sadly. "They already have a way. They took your blood the night you were shot." Anna gasped, her hand covering her mouth. "They knew you'd survive. It was never to kill you, it was to mark you." Keanu pulled up his sleeve, and beneath the dried blood on his arm, a faint pattern glowed. A coin symbol burned into his skin. His voice was calm but heavy. "So now they can find me anywhere." The woman nodded. "And they will." The walls trembled suddenly as an explosion roared from above. Dust rained from the ceiling, lights flickering wildly. Guards shouted in the distance. The woman stood quickly, shouting, "Go now, take the map and run." Keanu grabbed Anna's hand, pulling her toward the back exit. They ran through narrow tunnels as alarms echoed through the halls. Behind them, the woman's voice faded under the sound of collapsing stone. As they burst into the cold Vienna night, Keanu turned to Anna, his breath ragged. "No more running. It's time we end this." Anna stared at him, fear and trust mixing in her eyes. "How?" she asked softly. He looked toward the distant mountains where the red dawn began to rise over the horizon. "By going back," he said, "to where John Wick was born." The road back to Prague felt longer this time. The rising sun painted the sky in shades of red and gold, but neither Keanu nor Anna spoke. The silence between them was heavier than words. Anna's eyes were fixed on the horizon. "What did she mean," she finally asked, "when she said you guarded the cube?" Keanu's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "I don't know everything. But I know I wasn't always an actor. Before Hollywood, before John Wick, I was part of something secret, and now it's all catching up." Anna turned to him, fear and curiosity in her eyes. "Then why were you chosen?" "Why you?" He smiled faintly, though his eyes stayed serious. "Because I never wanted power. They trusted the ones who didn't crave it." As they approached the outskirts of Prague, they noticed black cars parked near the old theater. It looked abandoned again, but the faint hum of machines echoed inside. Keanu stopped the car a few blocks away. "They're here," he said quietly. Anna nodded, determination replacing fear. "Then let's finish it." They moved carefully through the side entrance. The theater was dark except for a single spotlight shining on the stage. Beneath it stood the director, her wrists bound with silver rope. She was alive, but pale and weak. From the shadows, the hooded man stepped forward, the same one who had called him John. His calm voice carried across the hall. "You were always meant to return." Keanu stepped closer, his expression cold but steady. "If this is about the cube, it's gone." The man smiled faintly. "Nothing truly disappears, especially what lives inside you." He raised his hand, and two guards dragged Anna onto the stage. "She doesn't belong to this," Keanu shouted. "Neither did you," the man replied softly, "until you chose to remember." The lights above flickered, and suddenly the broken cube pieces from the monastery began to glow. They floated upward, spinning around Keanu in slow motion. Anna's eyes widened. "What's happening?" The man spoke again, his tone sharp with reverence. "The relic was never destroyed. It was waiting for its keeper to awaken." Keanu fell to his knees as images flashed in his mind, the same monastery, but in another century, his face different yet the same, protecting the cube from men who wanted to twist its power. The weight of memory pressed against his chest, and tears rolled down his face. The director cried out, "Stop it, he'll die." The man ignored her. "The past must return for the pact to survive," he said. But Keanu, now trembling, forced himself to stand. His voice cracked but carried strength. "I won't be your weapon again." The glowing fragments spun faster, forming a sphere of light that engulfed the hall. Anna shielded her eyes, calling his name. "Keanu, don't," but he whispered, "It has to end with me." He reached toward the light, his hand burning as it touched the floating pieces. The pain was unbearable, yet he didn't pull away. In his mind, he saw every face, his past selves, the director, Anna, the people he had saved and lost. He heard one final voice, calm and kind. To remember is not to suffer, it is to heal. The light dimmed suddenly, and the fragments fell silently to the ground. The hooded man's expression changed from triumph to horror. "What did you do?" he shouted. Keanu stood tall, his breathing steady. "I chose peace." The man drew his gun, but before he could fire, Anna stepped forward and struck him with the metal bar. The weapon fell, and Keanu grabbed it, turning it toward the control panel. He fired a single shot, shattering the machine that powered the cube's energy field. Sparks burst through the hall, and the ceiling lights exploded one by one. The director crawled toward them, coughing. "You stopped it," she whispered. Keanu knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "No, I returned it to where it belongs." He handed her a small shard of the cube, still faintly glowing. "Hide it where no one will look again." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The black cars were burning, their engines destroyed by the feedback. Anna leaned against the wall, exhausted and trembling. "Is it over?" she asked softly. Keanu looked up at the dawn light breaking through the broken roof. "For now," he said, "but truth never ends, it only rests." The director stood slowly, holding the shard close. "You've done what none of us could," she said. Keanu shook his head. "I just remembered who I was." A soft wind passed through the theater, carrying the smell of smoke and dust. For the first time, Keanu felt calm, not as John Wick, not as an actor, but as a man who had finally made peace with himself. Anna walked beside him, her voice quiet but steady. "What will you do now?" He smiled faintly. "Go back to where I started, maybe teach people to fight the right way." She laughed softly, tears in her eyes. "You mean like a teacher?" He looked at her, his expression warm. "No, like a reminder." They walked out together, the light growing brighter behind them. In the ashes of the old theater, the broken cube pulsed once, a heartbeat of light, faint but alive. And far away in another city, a man in a dark coat watched the sunrise. He spoke into his earpiece, his voice calm and certain. "The Keeper has returned. Phase 2 begins." The sun rose over Prague, soft and golden, washing away the smoke of the night before. The city was quiet again, as if pretending nothing had happened. But deep inside the abandoned theater, silence carried the weight of secrets. Keanu stood near the broken stage, his jacket torn, his hands still shaking slightly. He looked around the place where it all began, where the memories, the truth, and the pain had collided. Anna walked beside him, her eyes tired but peaceful. "It feels like the world has stopped," she said softly. Keanu smiled faintly. "Maybe it needed to." The director arrived soon after, her steps slow but steady. Her eyes held both pride and sadness. "The cube is gone," she said quietly. "I buried the last shard where no one will ever find it." Keanu nodded. "Good, let it rest." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The morning light filled the cracked windows, and dust danced in the air like quiet confetti celebrating survival. Anna broke the silence first. "So this was all real," she said. "The pact, the cube, the training, everything." The director smiled. "Yes, but what makes it real isn't the history. It's the choice he made to end violence with peace." Anna looked at Keanu, her eyes shining. "You did something no one else could." He shook his head slowly. "No, I just stopped running from myself." They walked out of the theater together, the morning breeze brushing against their faces, carrying the faint smell of rain and dust. The streets were empty, but the world felt alive again. As they reached the car, Keanu paused. "I'm leaving Prague," he said quietly. Anna turned to him. "Where will you go?" He smiled. "Somewhere quiet, maybe Japan. There's an old temple where warriors once learned peace before battle. I think that's where I belong now." Anna nodded, her eyes heavy with emotion. "And what about me?" she asked softly. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice warm. "You'll keep telling stories. The world needs people like you, people who remind others that courage doesn't need violence." She blinked away tears. "You sound like a teacher already." He chuckled softly. "Maybe I was always meant to be one." The director handed him a small envelope. "Before she disappeared, the woman from Vienna left this for you," she said. Keanu opened it carefully. Inside was a simple note written in elegant handwriting. "Memory is not a curse. It is a bridge to who we can still become." Beneath the note was a tiny piece of the cube, barely glowing. Keanu closed his fist around it and whispered, "Then let it guide me, not define me." They hugged one last time. Anna held on tightly, her voice trembling. "You changed everything." He smiled gently. "No, you did. You reminded me why stories matter." As Keanu walked away, his figure grew smaller in the distance. The wind carried the sound of his footsteps, and for a moment, Anna thought she saw the faint glow of light following him. It shimmered once, then vanished into the morning mist. Weeks later, news spread quietly through the film world. Keanu Reeves had vanished from public life. No interviews, no appearances, no announcements. Some said he retired. Others said he went on a spiritual retreat. No one really knew. Anna continued her work, directing a new film, a story about peace, memory, and second chances. In one scene, a character says, "The greatest warrior is the one who no longer needs to fight." The audience felt it deeply, though none of them knew the truth behind those words. 1 year later, in a quiet Japanese mountain village, an old temple bell rang softly at sunrise. Monks walked through the garden, carrying bowls of rice and tea. Among them was a man dressed simply in white, his hair longer, his face calm and gentle. It was Keanu. He swept the courtyard, his movements slow and mindful. When a young boy dropped his bowl and began to cry, Keanu knelt beside him and smiled. "It's just rice," he said softly. "We can always begin again." The boy stopped crying and smiled back. In that simple moment, peace lived again. As the morning light touched the temple walls, Keanu looked toward the mountains. He took the small shard of the cube from his pocket, its light faint, warm, and alive, and placed it gently beneath a cherry blossom tree. "Rest now," he whispered. "Your story is safe." He stood up slowly, watching the petals fall like snow over the earth. And somewhere far away in the ruins of the old theater, a single piano key pressed itself down, as if the past was saying goodbye. Keanu smiled, not as John Wick, not as an actor, but as a man who had finally remembered peace. The wind carried one last whisper through the valley. "Your story has already begun."